Hello, everybody, and we're just going to wait about 30 seconds. We're going to make sure that all the platforms are live before we begin. All right, let's make sure here. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of a Blind Tech Guys podcast. My name is Nimer, and we're joining you today on the 25th of April here in the States, 26 most other places by now. And whatever date it is when you listen to this podcast, we're very glad to have you guys here. And we have a special episode for you today. And we do have lots of mystery guests joining me. So, hello, Marco. How's it going?
Hello, Nimer. How are you, my friend? It's been a little while since I've been on here and been on the actual podcast, but I am back from my sojourn over to WA, so it's great to be back and great to be with you guys. And Kurt, have you got any clothes on this week, or I hope you've got your camera off, for God's sake. Sheesh.
Both.
Hello.
Both this time.
Thank God for that. Yeah, yeah,
Very good. Very good.
Yes,
I'm
very
glad.
good. I'm glad you got sorted before the top of the hour.
Correct.
And Dennis, welcome back for another week.
Hello, Marco, Kurt, Nimmer. Glad to be here.
And I
Well,
believe
very
we've got a
glad that
couple of
you're here,
people here
Dennis.
too as well, Nimmer. Some intruders. Sorry, guests. Guests. Yes.
Yeah, and you know what? It seems like the Aussies have invaded the pod.
Yes. So it should be.
Sudden invasion.
Yes.
I'd like to welcome a couple of individuals here from NVAccess. I'd like to welcome Michael Curran. Hello, Michael.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well, and we're very glad that you're here. And also Quentin.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Well, we're all doing well,
Hello,
and we're very
Quentin.
glad that you're here. And so, yeah, as you listeners will maybe be aware, NVDA is a very wonderful, lovely screen reader that has been around for a while, and we're here to have a chat about what it is, a little bit about each of the presenters. They'll tell us a little bit about it. We have some questions that we've gotten from you and probably some of our own. And kind of want to discuss a little bit about where we're at the moment with screen readers and maybe where we're headed, some of the trends, some of the future things that might be going on. And as we go along, if you have any questions, please throw those in the chat. And so let's begin. If you guys want to introduce yourselves, so tell us a little bit about who you are, how you got started, anything else. So go ahead. You can go, Mick, or either one of you, really.
Okay, I'm Mick Curran, and I'm one of the core developers of NVDA and also an executive director of NVAccess. I started the NVDA project way back in 2006, partly just to sort of see whether I could do something, to just something fun to do, but also I think me and other people close to me around that time had always been talking about, why aren't there any free screen readers on Windows? Because there certainly were on Linux and things, and we didn't understand why. And so I got sick of sort of wondering why and asking the question, and thought that why not we just have a go and see how far we get. I had no idea whether we would succeed or not. And that's sort of how I started in this space. I've always had an interest in software development and IT and things like that. I knew sort of, during school that was the sort of the place I wanted to go into the field I wanted to go into. And yeah, I did do a few years at university, but interestingly enough, I actually quit uni. I just had enough of school and wanted to try my hand at some other projects, and one of them was NVDA. And at the same time, also during uni, I also had a lot to do with Blind Citizens Australia, and I found it sort of hard to balance those two passions. I really like blindness advocacy, or at least I certainly had a lot to do with it way back then, but also really had this love for software development, and it was really good to find the NVDA project and start that, because it enabled me to sort of put together those two passions of helping the blind, making sure that we could use computers for no more cost than a sighted person, but that also, of course, entailed some pretty cool software development too. So, yeah, that's sort of my background there.
So, Mick, with NVDA, was it yourself and I believe was it Jamie as well that was a part of the original commencement of the screen reader? Is that how it sort of came about?
That's correct. So Jamie Tay, who many of you may know, we've been friends for many, many years. We actually met at music camp for the blind in Australia
the
when
good old
we were
music
both
camp.
10. Yep, and I think that's where I first met you, Marco, as well.
It was, yeah. Long time ago. Wow.
Yep. So yeah, we'd known each other since then, and certainly got back together. Found each other again in around 2000 or so, when we were sort of late teenagers, and started working on some other accessibility projects together. But yeah, in 2006, I tried my hand at starting NVDA, and Jamie knew what I was doing and was watching closely. And I've certainly said this before, Jamie and I have said this before. At first, I think he was fairly skeptical of how far the project would go, and I think that's one of the reasons for that simply is just because no one's done it before, therefore there must be a reason why it can't be done, sort of thing. So I worked on it for a few months by myself, and I think it was then at that point he's going, oh, hang on, Mick's actually taking this seriously and he's not stopping. And so Jamie very quickly came on board with me as well, and that was really, really good. It really pushed the project forward immensely, because to be honest, he has, at the time, he certainly had a lot more software development experience than I did, because he'd completed uni degrees and already had a job in software development and stuff. So that was really, really helpful. And together, we then, pretty much 2 months into the project, took the project forward, and Jamie and I worked together on that for another 10, 11 years. And in 2017, though, Jamie took a job at Mozilla, and he now works on Firefox, and that's really, really great for him. And we still talk all the time. We're still both directors on the board of NVAccess and things like that. So he's still very much embedded in the project. But yes, he was definitely a very crucial part of NVDA for the first 10, 11 years. Yeah.
So I'm a little curious, what's it like building a screen reader from the ground up? Like, how much of it was writing the code all from scratch versus taking advantage of things that already existed and putting them together? So
at the time, we were sort of, I think a few things were sort of aligned. And so sort of the steps that happened was that I'd actually taken a small holiday in Queensland, and I was staying with Jamie for the weekend. I wanted a break from uni. And during this little holiday, he showed me the Python programming language. And I must admit, at first, I hated it. Without going into too much detail, Python sort of enforces indentation for its programming structure, whereas other programming languages don't tend to do that. And so I really hated it from the start. However, though, I soon, as we sort of played around with it a bit, I could really see the potential. It was a really fast language to program in. It was very flexible and all that kind of stuff. And we even together during this, while I was up there, worked on a little another little pet project together, and I was just amazed how fast we could get through the coding. And so on the plane on the way back, I was looking at more Python stuff and realized that there were a few interesting sort of programming libraries or sort of add-ons to Python, which were written by people at the University of Carolina, I think, in the States, with some funding from IBM. And they there was a little library that could help you get keyboard input into Python. There was a little library that could interface with the SAPI5 speech synthesizers. And there was a little library that would access sort of the accessibility information of Windows. And I saw these three libraries or tools and suddenly just went, hang on a minute. If you put these three things together in a particular way, there's enough here to make a very rudimentary screen reader, probably not much more than Windows Narrator, or not even that much perhaps at the time. But I could see that potential straight away and thought, no, I'm going to play with this. And so we were very lucky to start with those three little sort of building blocks that we're able to put together and write something sort of very rudimentary, sort of prototype. And that's sort of what really got us off the ground pretty fast in the first few months. It's, I should point out, of course, very quickly those libraries and things were replaced because they probably weren't maintained, they didn't have the features that we really needed as we moved forward, but it gave us that sort of scaffold to start, writing something, putting sort of the general logic together for then to us, for us then to move on, replace that stuff and come up with our own stuff that suited us much better. But we wouldn't have got off the ground without those first little those projects existing. So that's sort of how we kind of got started. It's also worth pointing out that there's no real books or university degrees or courses or whatever that you can refer to on how to write a screen reader. It's just too esoteric. And up till NVDA, at least on Windows, all of the other screen readers were closed source, meaning they didn't share their source code. You couldn't look at how they did things. And so every time someone wrote a screen reader on Windows, they had to reinvent the wheel. They had to do it from the ground up, even if someone else had done it. And that was another reason why I was interested in doing NVDA, was I didn't believe that was right for how blind people depend on screen readers, but all the knowledge was locked up in these closed source products, possibly run by, in some cases, people who may not have been blind, certainly at the top management and things like that. So I wanted to change that, and I had no idea if I'd succeed, but I'd just give it a go.
Now, Quentin, just to bring you into the conversation, how has your involvement sort of become apparent with NVDA, and how did you get into the whole project?
Yep. So I worked for a blindness agency for about a dozen years. And during that, I was teaching computer skills with various adaptive technology. And so I was aware of NVDA, particularly towards the latter part of that, as NVDA started becoming more widely used. I then left that, and I was talking to Mick. I'd met Mick a few times sort of through work and socially as well. And I was talking with him and about some training material that I was looking at and working on for using Windows with a screen reader. And we got talking about how he was interested in somebody specifically writing material for NVDA. So I ended up coming on board with the project in 2015 to do that. And since then, I've been involved. So my role officially is training and support manager. So since that time, I have written a suite of training materials, both to introduce NVDA itself, so the basic training for NVDA, and some modules for Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook, as well as the certification program that we've got. So you can sit an online exam and become an NVDA certified expert, which quite a few people have done, which has been very good. And I am also probably the person that you'll talk to if you write an email with a query to info@NVAccess, or if you tweet to us or engage with us on Facebook. And I also do our in-process blog. I keep that up to date as well. So,
So you're the one that I can yell at. Excellent.
yes, I'm the one that you can yell at.
Oh, brilliant. So, Mick, you miss out on all that fun. And
Well,
you still
no matter how hard I try, I still get people still find my email addresses and things.
Yes.
If you use too many big words, I'll pass it on to Mick anyway.
Oh, excellent.
That's true.
Okay. Oh, very good. So NVDA obviously having, and I agree with you, Quentin, I certainly found NVDA over the last, I guess, 5 or 6 years more so than previously. It's sort of taken off a little bit, I think, now, and it's extremely competitive with every other screen reader that I've used. What do you think has sort of led to that happening? How's the project sort of moved on? I think it's fair in saying maybe over the last several years it's sort of pushed forward. How do you attribute that?
I think that it's really, to some degree, just us, in the company learning more, and because we started this, whole endeavor, as I say, way back in 2006. But I mean, it was just a voluntary project. I hadn't even finished a uni degree or anything like that. We were all fairly young, and but I think from the outset, though, our dedication to the fact that we would keep it free and things like that has kept us supported by some pretty big companies and things like that. So right from the outset, I think we've had interest and help from companies like Mozilla and Microsoft and Yahoo and Adobe and Google, and various other companies, and they've sort of liked and believed in what we were doing and have provided us with funding to continue the project. And but it really is about this fact that we, the one thing we do is we don't go back on our sort of promise that it remains free and open source, and we never will. And I think that's one of the reasons why we continue to exist, and why we've been able to get better over the years, is because we've stuck to that, and people have stuck with us. But I think also we've taken steps slowly over the years. Back in 2007 when we started the company, there was just pretty much Jamie and I running the whole thing. Only two of us for many years. That was true, and then we decided, due to some funding, we did hire a general manager at one point many years ago, and that enabled us to grow a little bit. And then, of course, we then hired Quentin, which we really boosted a lot of things for us. It was really great to bring him on board. And then I think things have just grown since then. So I think it's really just about growing up, becoming more serious, learning more skills, and becoming, thanks to the community, becoming a more polished product, and being motivated, knowing that like seeing things suggesting that we are up there with the other screen readers. In fact, one of the WebAIM survey in 2019 suggests that we are now the most popular screen reader by like a one, what is it? I don't know, not even 1% margin. But the point is, it's very exciting to see that kind of impact that we're making. So we're definitely fueled by we'd just love to see how much of a change that NVDA is making around the world, making sure that blind people have equitable access.
So I wanted to circle back really quick to your promise to make this free and keep it free. Because I work, in an enterprise IT help desk job, and it almost seems, and to be clear, this is, I think, the best thing, one of the best things about NVDA that I love is the open source. It's free, making the screen reader, such a powerful screen reader, more available to a lot of people. But that was almost, it seemed like a liability is not the right word, but it was a bit of a battle to get my enterprise IT team to be okay with me using NVDA along with JAWS, when in reality, I need both to do my job. Some things one screen reader does better than the other one, and I switch back and forth a lot. And so I'm just wondering how you have had success getting a free open source product like this into the workplace, and if you see that trending up at all.
I think it definitely is, and I think that the industry is definitely, the software industry as a whole is changing and definitely accepting open source much more than it has in the past. I mean, we now look at companies like Microsoft really embracing open source now in the last few years. Dramatic changes there. Google, is all, much of it is open source. So things are changing. I mean, and also maybe Quentin, you can speak to this about, various governments around the world and their policies about open source.
Exactly. So we've seen that quite a lot, and that's one of the questions that we've traditionally been asked, has been around, open source, is that safe? And the answer actually is yes. If you download NVDA, so when, yes, anybody can contribute code towards NVDA, or submit code, to be contributed towards NVDA, but it's still approved by and needs to be checked over by the core developers. So basically everything that you get when you download NVDA from NVAccess has been checked over and approved and compiled by us in exactly the same way that a closed source product that you download from another website has been checked by them and approved by them or written by them. So in that respect, it's perfectly safe. You can check, there's a certificate signature that the file is signed, so you can double check that as well. There's definitely been, as Mick said, a movement by corporations and by governments towards open source. Most of the major countries that I've looked at have a policy towards using or at least considering open source. And we've linked to a few of those. We created a page a few years ago for corporate and government users that answers a lot of those sort of questions. And we've linked to some of the main governments and places like Microsoft and Google with their policies as well. So we've seen that isn't as much of a barrier as it used to be, now that most IT managers are becoming more informed about that. And just back on the previous point about NVDA's development and why it's sort of taken off a bit more, I'd say as well, the product has certainly matured a lot. And yeah, it absolutely is comparable. I'd argue more so, but certainly comparable with other screen readers, including for workplace. I know around the time I came on board with the project, there was still a feeling, that people in the community would say, oh, but yeah, NVDA is fine for home use, but you couldn't use it in a workplace. And that's absolutely not true. We've done a lot of work towards making sure that it's accessible and works with a lot of the enterprise software that people use. And so, yeah, it's definitely an option between that.
To be perfectly fair, though, Quentin, I think a lot of people were throwing that argument up because, they were probably used to using another screen reader and probably weren't as open to the idea of change, I suspect. And I certainly think back to when I was working full-time, and I think that was probably the way it really was for me.
Oh, absolutely. And
know.
yep, human beings as a species generally don't like change, and that's understandable. One point I'd actually make there as well is for people coming from certain other screen readers looking to use NVDA, you can get Eloquence. You can purchase the Eloquence screen reader, the Eloquence synthesizer for NVDA, so you can have that voice that you're familiar with if you want that.
Now,
I have a few questions here, and we'll ask some questions from users. And I think one of the questions that I like to ask before I get into those questions. So one of my questions that I always ask any developers, and now just to preface this, I've been using NVDA since probably about 0.5, whatever, going pretty far back. But why would I consider, or should I consider, NVDA over other screen readers on the market? What is the strength of NVDA, or why would I use NVDA? Like, why would I consider changing?
I think that's possibly the wrong question, because I don't think, like, I mean, look, if people find, NVDA to have, particular features, or they can get the job done more efficiently, then that's great. They should change. But I just want to make clear that from the outset, the goal, certainly for me anyway, was never to necessarily replace the whole existing screen reader market or anything like that. That was never the point. If people are successfully using their other screen readers, and here's the key point, they can pay for them, that's fine. I don't care. And they, and if that screen reader does a good job for them, that's totally fine. I don't want to make cause people pain to change for the sake of change. Our first, I suppose the first goal really was back then to make sure that the home user had something, because you look at the unemployment rate for blind people, it's over 60%, way high. It's certainly in Australia, and way higher in many other countries. And a major reason was because blind people simply couldn't access computers because there were no free screen readers, and it's very hard to get in many countries, and even in Australia, funding for a commercial screen reader. And so the first point of call for us was to make sure that there was a free screen reader available for all people, but not necessarily for people to change. However, over the years, that has, this position has certainly changed, and we're very happy to see that, excited to know that there are many people who have moved from other commercial screen readers to NVDA, simply, due to financial reasons. They don't want to keep on paying for updates, etc. We tend to move a bit faster in our release processes, so we release we make 4 releases a year usually, and of course there are like beta and alpha branches and things like that. Not that we recommend them for production use, but certainly people, curious people, there's sort of faster updates there. NVDA is certainly has been written from the ground up in a much more, well, we came into things in a much more modern atmosphere, I think. So what was true, say, 20, 30 years ago for some of the other commercial screen readers was not so true when we started developing NVDA. So we had the chance to develop things a little bit more different, a little bit more modern, a little bit more abstract, sort of being able to better take into account and make better use of a lot of the new sort of modern accessibility APIs and things like that exist now in the Windows ecosystem. So that tends to mean that we are usually pretty quick to support newer Windows operating system, newer features in Windows. We certainly, this is going back a bit, but we were certainly very fast bringing out support for Windows Vista, things like that. In fact, there weren't many changes we needed to do that. I remember when people switched from XP to Vista because the way we'd started to write NVDA originally, I suppose didn't make as many assumptions or about older technologies as the way that some of the newer older commercial screen readers did.
Yeah,
Quentin,
it's
is
all
there
really
anything you want to add
interesting.
about features and things?
And I'd also add that in much the same way as a lot of users have several different browsers, it's also worth, even if you use another screen reader for most of your work and you're happy with that, as Mick said, it never hurts to have NVDA on hand. It's free, so there's no extra cost for you, and it will sometimes work in places where others may not.
Yeah,
But I
that's
think it
one thing
really
as a
is much
trainer. I always like to point that out to people too, is that, it's always having these tools, are really important. So, one tool may work a little bit better somewhere else or may not work in somewhere. And so it's always good to have these tools.
Exactly.
Right. Well, I have a question here from Thomas here in the chat. Hello, Thomas. He says, is the support to RDP efficient? Because I use it to remote to server in Azure and AWS.
Is he talking? I mean, if you use, if you're able to set up NVDA Remote, which is an add-on for NVDA, if you are able to set up NVDA on the remote system and then install the NVDA Remote add-on, and then install the NVDA Remote add-on on your local copy of NVDA, and then that works quite efficiently because it sends the the text for the speech and braille over the wire rather than the actual audio. So yeah, you can be very efficient with NVDA Remote. I'm not entirely sure whether he's talking specifically about that or looking for solutions or but there certainly are ways to do that.
Yeah, we can clarify that. Let's see.
Yep. I was just going to add Unicorn DVC is another add-on that works with NVDA specifically for remote sessions like RDP, Citrix, VMware, Horizon, and so on. That is more aimed at enterprise level. So it's commercial, it's a little bit more expensive, but certainly if that's what your need is as a user or as an enterprise user, then that's an option as well.
Excellent. We have another comment here. Tedros says, as a JAWS user, I'm a JAWS user and want to embrace NVDA. Does NVDA have, or do you plan to introduce settings that emulate JAWS keystrokes to streamline the learning curve that make the transition smooth?
We actually, a lot of the base keystrokes are quite similar between the two, but certainly there are differences. There is a wiki page that we've got set up that actually I should try and make more of a prominent link to, but it is called Switching from JAWS to NVDA, and it's basically designed around that premise. So for a JAWS user, it covers a lot of the, this is what this feature is in JAWS, how do I do that in NVDA type things. So that is usually the first resource I would recommend for a JAWS user. If you do have a particular function that uses one keystroke that you really, really want to keep that works differently in NVDA, you can change the keystrokes in NVDA, so you can edit those to make it whatever you want.
Excellent. And I have just three real quick questions here from users. Here we have one question here says, are there plans to make NVDA work better with Microsoft PowerPoint? It doesn't really specify what the issues the person's having, but
I mean, we'd like to. Well, we're always looking for feedback, I guess, on what works well and what doesn't, and we don't have any plans right now to commit to any major work on Microsoft PowerPoint, but it is feedback from users like this person that shows us, that PowerPoint is being used, or people want to use PowerPoint. We need to understand why they can't or what troubles they're having. But also, there's some great training material, Quentin.
There is. So I wrote a guide on using PowerPoint with NVDA, and I should say that in doing that, one of the things that we noticed when we were writing not just the PowerPoint one, but all of the Office ones, was it did highlight a number of issues which needed improvement, both from NVDA's side and also from Microsoft's side. And I know from conversations, Microsoft were very impressed with the amount of information that we could give them, and the number of bugs that we could share with them for things that needed improving in Office. And that has seen a lot of improvements in Office overall, and in Office with NVDA specifically as well, when you take into account the fixes that we've put in. And so I do know there are still some issues with PowerPoint, and hopefully we're aware of a lot of those. Hopefully Microsoft are aware of a lot of those. We do have an issue tracker on GitHub, which is basically our main place to record and store issues and updates to issues. But if that user or any user would like to write to us, info@nvaccess.org, we can look into the issue that you're having, and whether that's a matter of training, maybe there's a keystroke to do something that you weren't aware of, whether it's something that we can improve in NVDA, or whether it's something we can pass on to Microsoft to improve with PowerPoint, or a combination of all of those.
Excellent. Here, next question we have: does NVAccess have plans to natively refine or build a remote access solution for computers? So I guess maybe implementing NVDA remote into NVDA?
Yes, we are aware that the NVDA remote add-on as popular as it is and successful as it has been in the past, I think it's becoming clear that we're probably going to need to integrate it into NVDA itself, because there are changes at NVDA that need to be made that then require updates for NVDA remote, but also I think work on the NVDA remote add-on perhaps is slowed down a bit by the community for various reasons. So therefore, we might look at some point soon how we can integrate this into NVDA itself. I think it'll be a fun project, and I think it will be beneficial to all. But there's a lot of work to go into that, because we also need to look at infrastructure and things and making things more efficient with servers and all that kind of stuff. So it's something that we are looking into in the near future. Just watch this space. We're definitely interested in doing that.
And the next question here, just before, I think the last question before we move on to our conversation here about the landscape and the future of NVDA. We have a question here. It says, why is it difficult to maintain the formatting of a web page when copying from it and pasting into Microsoft Word?
All right, let's see. Okay. So essentially, in order for screen readers to access web content, traditionally they have used what is called a virtual buffer, which is like a sort of a particular rendering or a particular sort of model of the web page, where the screen reader has gone and sort of interrogated the web browser to get all the information about the web page, and then has built sort of this sort of flat document in the screen reader representing the web page. And this is what we've been used to with many commercial screen readers for many years, since like 1990, 8 or something. And NVDA did exactly the same thing as what those screen readers do. One of as much as, the upside to that is that it's all formatted really well so that you can read the web page in a linear fashion and get to information really fast. But yes, there is the downfall that when you copy text out of this virtual buffer into something like Microsoft Word that supports sort of rich formatting, then most of the formatting is lost. Some screen readers have added features to get around this, to do sort of special copy commands which sort of say, yes, I know you've selected something in the virtual buffer, but can you please instruct the web page to actually do the real selection and use its own copy feature. There are ways we might be able to do this in NVDA. I'll admit we haven't looked at that up to now. It's something we might look into in the future. We know that kind of feature would be fairly popular. But it's also, though, there's a lot of changes in the web browser landscape at the moment with sort of how we access web browsers and all that kind of stuff. Certainly with sort of the introduction of Microsoft Edge and things like that, that change the way that we do some of these things. So yeah, we might get to this kind of feature in the near future if we know that it's would be very, very popular with people. Then maybe we can prioritize that a bit higher. If we can understand how it will impact on people in their jobs and things, if people can clearly state that it will dramatically help them, then yeah, we could probably prioritize something like that. So we believe that we certainly would be able to do it for certain web browsers, maybe not others. But yeah, in short, there are technical reasons why up to now things have worked the way they have and why that feature isn't supported. But it's something we should look into.
Now, just to kind of play off of the one question that somebody had with JAWS, are there plans to make NVDA more customizable as far as features? An example would be, for example, with JAWS and Outlook. If you don't want a message automatically read, or you can control what's read, or isn't spoken, are there plans to add something like that to NVDA to make it more user customizable?
Not right at this stage, but again, if people want to, very clearly explain what they're trying to do, give us use cases of, I need to do this in my job or whatever, and this, for these reasons it would make it a lot easier. Then yeah, then we can consider it. Also, I should note that I think we've sort of mentioned this a little bit, but making it more clear that NVDA is also a community effort. Although NVAccess signs off on all the work at the end of the day, much of the code nowadays, around 45% or so, is contributed by the community. So, maybe there are people in the community who can add these kind of features to NVDA, and we would, definitely consider them if someone was willing to put in the effort. NVDA is, foremost by users for users and a community project. And I think if we as blind users want something in NVDA and we have the ability to do so, then then please do contribute to NVDA, and then then we can get through a lot more of these kind of feature requests.
Well, we don't want to take up a lot of your time, but I think it's good to jump to this whole idea of like a topic I'm interested in. So we started out, I guess, a lot of screen readers with virtual buffer type things. And, over time, screen readers have evolved, and NVDA, I think, has evolved in many ways from its very beginning. And we're now seeing kind of a shift in technologies, sort of use of AI, automatic image labeling, button labeling, trying to work to make inaccessible apps more accessible. Some of these things are done through NVDA add-ons, but I guess how do you see the role of NVAccess in continuing to move forward and maybe looking at the future of what NVDA has done, maybe reflect on where we have been and kind of where we're going? Any thoughts on this very broad topic that I just threw out there?
Yeah, look, it's certainly been a journey and an evolving landscape. I think that it's been really, really exciting to see companies such as Google and especially Microsoft moving forward a lot faster in the last few years, certainly since about 2015. The way that they have taken accessibility a lot more seriously than they have in the past has enabled us to work much more closely with them and get a lot of things done that we've been asking for years, especially around sort of performance and things like that. And we're definitely seeing these, kind of new features and benefits coming into Windows 10. Certainly things like being able to fetch a lot of data, accessibility data at once, because a screen reader needs to know a lot of information very quickly, and we need to come up with ways to speed that kind of process up. And we've certainly been working with Microsoft on that kind of thing, not just us and other screen reader vendors as well. And we're slowly starting to see this kind of work come into Windows 10. So that's one aspect of where we're all working together, and we need to continue doing that work, is in performance. We need to make sure that blind people can get access to information as efficiently as possible. And especially this becomes more apparent in these sort of remote scenarios and things like that, where now people are working from home and they're accessing a system somewhere else. And, we're starting to see offerings from places like Microsoft with these sort of applications, that can be run remotely and all this kind of stuff. And we need to make sure that NVDA and other screen readers are able to still interact with those applications efficiently. So that's one big piece that we need to continue working on. It's also fair to say that things just move very fast in the software industry, especially, new versions of web browsers are coming out all the time. New versions of Windows are coming out all the time. New versions of Office. And our job at NVAccess, the majority of the time, is just catching up with those new versions, because people expect that NVDA is going to work well with these new versions when they come out. So yeah, that's a big part of our job, making sure that NVDA doesn't break with these new versions, and then making sure that we're supporting the new features in those versions and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I'm sort of saying that a lot of our job is really just keeping up with that, and we struggle to find the time to look into this sort of real far future type stuff like AI and all that kind of stuff. Having said that, though, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on with NVDA add-ons and all that kind of stuff, and I hope that certainly continues, and I certainly hope that the community continues to do that kind of research, and when NVAccess has the time, we'll also try to do so as well. I mean, in the past, obviously we've added things like optical character recognition to NVDA, so certainly in Windows 10 that's built in to NVDA. There was a prototype image descriptor add-on which was made last year with a Google Summer of Code program, and that sort of prototyped using machine learning and AI to describe images locally on your machine. We did, notice it was a really interesting project, and it highlighted a lot of issues that still need to be overcome, such as like the size of the machine learning databases and things. They're very large, because if they're too small, the kind of results you get back from the image descriptions are pretty much nonsense, and there really are no help for a blind person. So there's things like that. And of course, there are a lot of online offerings for describing images nowadays, both from Microsoft and Google and others. And at the moment, we've been trying to do this for a while, but we're still, trying to continue with this. How do these description image subscription services fit in with NVDA as a free and open source screen reader? Do we have some kind of mechanism for users to get their own accounts with these big companies offering the image description services, and then sort of hook that into NVDA with a subscription, or does NVAccess get some kind of overall subscription? So there's a lot of politics and a lot of logistics that need to go into trying to integrate some of this AI stuff into NVDA. It's all very exciting, and things are certainly moving forward, and there's a lot of features and services and stuff we would love to add to NVDA, but it's about making sure that how we can fit it into our existing sort of model, and moving forward, what that means. And that's a conversation for not just us, but for other ATs and the industry at large. Having said that, though, I personally am a little bit of a skeptic around AI. I think AI can help in certain areas, as long as there are checks and balances, but there are many instances, I'm sure people have read just in general in news articles and such in the past, where AI has been biased or gotten things wrong, or it's been racist, or didn't detect particular needs of people with disabilities, cars running over wheelchairs or whatever, because it wasn't trained on that data, because people with disabilities are such a tiny percentage of the general population, and so AI pretty much works on on statistical majority. It's more likely to give an answer that's more common, and so there are things we need to look at for that. There have been certainly looking at things like, say, guessing of labels for form fields on web pages. That's something we've sort of shied away from, because we don't trust that it can be always completely accurate. And I think for someone in a corporate job on a banking website or something like that, doing some $1 million transactions or whatever, if that form field is wrong when it's guessed, really, really bad, and we don't want to, that's it's not right. You can't. So if we ever do add form field guessing, it has to be really blatant that it's a guess, and that we would prefer that people learn their screen reader well, and maybe take a few more hours or whatever to get really confident with how to problem solve with their screen reader. If something seems like it doesn't have a label, usually the label is visible on the page, but it's just about which one it is or whatever. And we would prefer that there's some human interaction there, because certainly for me personally, guessing seems a little bit too dangerous. That's just,
yes.
And I think that's true with as we go into AI and stuff. It's going to become more of that, and I think there are certain, AI can certainly speed up the process in certain things, but having blind people totally rely on AI and just trusting sort of 100% that it's right, no way. I think there's going to be
I think you make a very valid point though, Mick, because and I think a lot of people are very excited about the whole AI scenario, but I think there's definitely still a long way to go.
I would agree.
Sure,
I mean,
correct.
if nothing else, maybe make it where the user has to turn it on and make it clear that it's not a kind of to state what Apple had said when they introduced the screen recognition feature. This is not a bulletproof feature. This can be used as an aid, but that's exactly what it is. It's an aid, a tool in the toolbox that could or could not help you.
And it might turn on you if you're using it when you shouldn't.
Oh, absolutely. I had that problem with Safari. I couldn't. Why the heck isn't this work? Oh, screen recognition on. But yet I used it on 2 websites where I had drop-down boxes. I couldn't get it with JAWS or NVDA. I couldn't get them to click. But I got it.
I think there's been a similar. We can point to a similar thing in history for blind people. At least personally, I think is that, say, like when GPS was introduced into people's L&M training and things like that. People then, they knew how to use their GPS well, But as soon as it stopped, what do?
Right.
Not like, us years ago learned, certainly me, we didn't have GPS or anything like that. And we
No,
learned to problem
exactly.
solve. Are people doing that now? I'm not sure.
No, I think that's definitely dropped off the map. So it's funny you bring that up, Mick. I had a discussion about this with somebody the other day. I think it's definitely dropped off the map. No doubt about it.
Yep.
We have one last question here in the chat. Here it says, how much work does it take to maintain and upgrade NVDA? And how many in the community add to NVDA? This is from Live Accessible.
Yeah. Okay. So NVAccess currently has 5 employees. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 5 employees. Pretty much all full time. So we have a general manager who sort of looks at the day-to-day finances and operations and all that kind of stuff. Very, very busy job. And because NVAccess is not only a company, a corporate entity in Australia, but it's also a charity. So there's a lot of things that we need to conform with. We get audited every year, and that's a big process to make sure that people's money really is going, where it's going and all that kind of stuff. That's how it works in Australia. And so that's a job in itself. Then we have, as developers, we have myself, we have Reef Turner, and also we've just hired in the last 2 months a new developer, Sean, and he's had to learn pretty fast on the ground running, but he's doing very, very well and has already contributed a great deal to NVDA. So that's 3 full-time developers. Then we have Quentin here, who's training support manager and doing all the training material, answering all the user questions and all that kind of stuff. That's a full-time job. And then, of course, outside of NVAccess, then we have the extremely large community. It's fair to say we probably have about maybe 20 community members or so who are contribute a lot of code to NVDA and are very common contributors. But then we have, if we count all the translators of NVDA, who translate all the messages in NVDA and everything into their own languages, etc., then there's more than, I think at the end of the day, there's more than 200 people who have their names on NVDA in some way or another. So it's a very, very large community, but it's very humbling and exciting to be working in this kind of a project with so many people committed to it. But that's really what it takes. It's 200 people to, their most. I mean, to get these releases out and make sure that NVDA is as stable as it can be, and that it's supports what it needs to, so that blind and vision impaired people can get their job done.
Excellent. Well, we don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do have here just one more question, our own question here, and we always ask this at the end. And of course, feel free to add in anything else. I don't want to cut you off either. But what can you give us a sneak peek about anything that's coming up in NVDA, or anything that's coming down the pike in the future, or something that you've been working on, or is there anything like that you can give us? Any hints?
Look, there's no really big surprising things coming up in the near term. To be honest, a lot of it's just day-to-day work, really. We're trying to get out NVDA 2021.1, which is going to be a release, one of these sort of administration releases, which is going to probably annoy a few add-on developers and things like that, because it's where we, at the start of each year, every 0.1 release, we're free to sort of make changes where we, remove old code and things like that people have been depending on, or whatever. And so people need to sort of update their add-ons and things like that. So that it is going to be an API breaking release, but there are. I'm just taking a look here on some of the things that we're seeing. We've got some experimental support for a few things. So in Microsoft Edge, there's now experimental support for using UI automation, which is one of Microsoft's sort of newer accessibility APIs. So being able to access Microsoft Edge with that, so that possibly provides sort of performance improvements. Similarly, the same thing for Microsoft Excel. That definitely provides a performance boost in Microsoft Excel, accessing it with UI automation. I should point out, though, these are experimental features, as in they're not complete yet, but people can turn these on in NVDA advanced settings and have a play with it. It does rely, though, that you have the absolute latest versions of these products like Excel and Edge and things like that. And so there's some exciting things like that. So they're not entirely really ready for like production use, but we allow our users to test this kind of stuff out early, if they want to, as a sort of a safe, advanced setting that they can turn on or turn off at will. We have, just looking through more things, certainly it's a so some support in Gmail when using Gmail with NVDA is actually going to be a little bit more performant, certainly when moving up and down a message list really fast. Previously, you'd hear a lot of the sort of the old selected items and stuff, and it would take a while for NVDA to catch up. That should be improved now. Updated eSpeak. Who have removed support for Adobe Flash content, because even Adobe doesn't support that anymore. Sorry. Plenty of bug fixes, about 18 bug fixes or so far. So yeah, look, a lot of bug fixes. There's not, this next release isn't a really big sort of feature release. As I say, a lot of it's sort of logistical and administrational, but it's something that we definitely need to do. But yeah, that's what's going on.
Excellent. Well, do you guys have, I don't know, Marco, Kurt, anybody has any last questions? Otherwise, Quentin and Mick, do you guys have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I had just one other quick question. One thing that I particularly appreciate about NVDA is the support for Google, G Suite, Google Docs, Google Sheets, etc. And it actually is, like, by quite a margin, my preferred screen reader for those. And so I'm just wondering how much of that was you on your own versus, like, collaborating with Google, because it seems very well integrated compared to even a version ago.
Sorry, I thought Mick was going to answer there.
So did I. I was expectantly waiting there for a response, and I just said, we'll just keep waiting, shall we? Excellent.
I was like, did I break the internet? I didn't mean to break the internet.
I actually thought it was Dennis that had muted himself again, but that's all right.
No, that's all good. So yeah, we do work with Google, and definitely G Suite is something that people ask us about. So I think it's a range of things, both work from Google on G Suite, work from browser manufacturers, work from us. So it's and it's good to know that that's appreciated and working well.
Now, I have one last question. You had said about the community could contribute to NVDA. If people wanted to do that, is there scripting documentation? Is scripting going to be expanded? How does that work?
Yeah, good question. There's so there is a developer user guide that you can get from GitHub, or email me if you can't find it. So at the moment you can create add-ons for NVDA, which Mick got disconnected. That's why he didn't answer.
Yeah,
He's
just letting you know that, and I'm not sure if Mick can hear me or not, but it says your device not connected, Mick, so you might want to just try going out and coming back in. It might hopefully fix the issue.
So yeah, at the moment you can write add-ons for NVDA, and it does require perhaps a little bit more knowledge, programming knowledge than say writing scripts for other screen readers. We have talked about the idea of simpler scripts that more people would be able to write. We haven't yet committed to anything either way there at this stage, but yeah, it's definitely something that we could consider in future.
I think that would be something useful. You know,
By the way, is NVAccess allowed to say the name of the Shark screen reader? Are staff at NVAccess allowed to say that name, or
Oh,
just
we can. we can. I normally don't, just because I try not to single out any particular product, and obviously I'm not as familiar. If you were asking me about a comparison, how does NVDA do this compared to I really haven't used JAWS much in recent years, or WindowEyes, or most of the others either, to know exactly how they work.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to thank you guys for coming on and joining us, and I want to make sure that you guys have had the opportunity to say anything else that you wanted to say, but I want to thank you guys so much for joining us, and we definitely at BTG appreciate it, and we'll hope that you'll consider coming back on anytime you wish and discussing anything new or anything else that you'd want to come on and discuss.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's been
Thank you.
great to be. Oh, Mick's back.
I am.
Yeah, not sure what happened there, Mick. It said device not connected or something, but we got you back. So
He came up just for the wrap up, and I came back just for that.
Yeah.
Whoa.
No, well, thank you so much, guys, and really appreciate you taking my email and coming onto the show. I really appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, everybody, this has been an interview with NVAccess, Mick and Quentin from NVAccess. And, yeah, we'll go on to the news. Let's see here. I think we're going to put in a bunch of articles here in the show notes, or a few articles in the show notes, but we'll mostly skip the news section for today. We're going to start out just by talking about a little bit about the Apple event. I think we'll mention that, but otherwise, if you would like to read anything else that happened in the news, please visit the show notes. But let's talk a little bit about the Apple event, and we did a podcast or a YouTube on that. We streamed that as to what happened on that Apple event. They announced a few things. So we have, let's see here, what do we have here? Well, we had some updates to Apple Podcasts. They released that.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about some new features to the Apple Podcasts platform, and they're redesigning that. And one of the features is that app developers podcast creators can choose to pay a certain amount for subscriptions, and if they choose to, they can pay Apple. I believe it's $20 a year or $30 a year, whatever it is. You pay Apple that much.
$20 a year. Yeah.
Yep. So you pay that much money, and then you can create different tiers for users to subscribe to podcasts. If you want to charge people for, I don't know, extra content or some kind of whatever you choose, I guess, as a podcaster, you can do that.
That's essentially for those that know about the services, a little bit like Podfan or what's that other one that everyone knows, Nimer, that's just escaped me right now.
Spotify is also doing something similar, I believe.
Yeah.
And my only thing with it is Apple, I believe, takes 30% or 20% from the podcast critter. I'm just
Yeah, it's
skeptical it's
30%
gonna
in
take
addition
off.
to the. Yep, it's 30% in addition to the
Yeah,
$20 subscription. So
yeah.
it's pretty normal. I mean, it's just it happens. My problem with it is though that you're locked into the Apple sphere, and again we talked
Yeah.
about that. I don't want to go too much in depth into these, but you are locked into the Apple sphere of having to create a podcast.
And that's what I was
with
going to say,
Apple
Nim.
and-
You've got to be very careful with these, and it'll be the same with Spotify or any of these. You've got to really read the fine print and just make sure that you don't lock yourself in, because I think as a creator, you want to be available on as many platforms as possible. That's just me.
Yeah.
So you just got to read
I
the
would
fine
agree.
print and just be a bit wary.
Well, let's see. What else do we have? We have an AirTag that was announced, and so this
that's
is
pretty
for
cool.
anybody who's used to the tile trackers. These are little things that you can attach to your keychains or your luggage or whatever it is, and you can use them. You can have them connected through your phone through Bluetooth, and they will help you. Your phone will help you find them. If you have a newer iPhone, they will also use different sensors like the ultra wideband, which will help you find it very precisely. So if you're always misplacing your keys, or as I do, my wallet, one of these are probably a good thing to have, or you can have a 4-pack. And one starts at $30, 4 starts at $100, and I think it's $100. So $100.
$100, yeah.
Now,
Yep.
one nice thing too, these are also sold on Amazon, and I verified that today. So you
Well,
can get them.
Yeah, you can get them on Amazon. You can get them on other places as well. I'm sure Best Buy and all these other
Yes,
places. And
they
one
do
thing
have
to
them.
know, though, with these, again, you're locked into Apple. So if you're getting these, you have to know that if you, for whatever reason, decide to switch platforms or use an Android device, or you switch back and forth, you can't switch back and forth with these, whereas with a tile tracker, you can. So this is, again, good for those Apple users. Not so good if you intend to do anything out of that ecosystem.
And the other thing to also keep in mind, and I know that a lot of companies do have spiels and very fancy words, just keep in mind, and there was quite a bit of traffic I saw on lists over the weekend, that these only have a radius of, I think it's 30 feet or 10 meters.
Because of
just
the
because
Bluetooth.
it's That's because of the Bluetooth. So just because it's a new device and everyone's going on about, I'm going to grab these because they're going to be all great and fantastic, you're not going to be able to find a parked car that's 100 meters away with this thing. It's not something that is going to be that much different from the tiles, honestly. And as you said, Nim, you are locked into that ecosystem.
The one difference, though, between the tiles, and the tiles does this too, but they have a network of devices. So, for example, if I lose my keys and Dennis is walking along with his iPhone and he happens to, and you've marked whatever item is lost, and he happens to walk past it, he'll get a notification or alert of some kind, and he'll know, okay, this is where it is, and can report that back. And so then that will help in tracking down that tile.
So if you lose your wallet, does that mean I can walk along with my iPhone and you know how you say, get it and steal it?
Well, you can get it and steal it, but if you're nice, you can just find it for me and help me find it.
Yeah,
so
but
you
I'm
don't
not
know where
nice. I feel like being grumpy pooch today, yeah.
Real quick here, we have an Apple TV with a new
Apple
one.
TV.
With a A12 Bionic processor. Very fast, very good. And this Apple TV is 4K.
Wow.
So finally have an Apple TV 4K.
4K
Now,
has been around for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, 4K's been around for a bit. Yeah.
pricing, we've got $179 or $199. $179 is for 32 gig. $199 is for 64 gig. So why would you pay $179 when you could spend $20 more and get double the storage? I'm not sure.
I was just going to say
So
that.
with the Apple TV, because obviously I've just bought the recent Chromecast, which is $99. So you're essentially, I know you're getting a lot more hard drive space essentially, but is there much point in getting the Apple TV over the Chromecast for anyone that's shopping around?
Yeah, if you're in the Apple ecosystem, again, if you have an iPhone and you have an iPad, then you naturally are going to want to get the Apple TV because you're connected with that Apple ecosystem. You've got the voiceover, you've got the nice fancy remote that comes with it that they went on about, how it has the little touch
it's got an
thing.
on-off button. Yeah.
an on-off button. Yeah. So
That's right. Forgot
yeah,
about
if
that.
you're locked into the Apple ecosystem, you're going to think these are great announcements. If you are switching back and forth, or you have a mixed household, I would consider a
You got
Chromecast
to
or
be a
something
little bit more
different. So
cautious. Yeah.
that's right.
Mm.
And finally, we have an M1 powered iMac. So this M1 is, by the way, the new chip that Apple's going on about. They've got it in their new MacBook Pros, and now they have it in their new iMac. And this iMac is looks very pretty. It's apparently very close to being invisible from the side. Very pretty, very nice.
Apparently the back's
good
quite
looking.
nice too.
The back is wonderful, very colorful, and they did go on about this for quite some time. Very, very colorful, very beautiful.
Very nice.
But the price is probably the most intriguing part for an iMac. It is $12.99 starting price, not the highest end model, obviously, but starting price $12.99 for an iMac. I think that is excellent.
That's actually quite reasonable
really
for
pretty good
usually
for an
I was
iMac.
expecting 15, 16 to be honest. That's usually
And I think they're usually around 2,000, so
Yeah.
2,100 somewhere around there.
exactly.
So anyway, I think this is a good price for an iMac, and you will get you will get that new M1 chip, which is actually at the moment kicking Intel's butt in many ways.
everything's kicking Intel's butt at the moment.
The only
anyway.
trouble is that if you do have apps that only run on Intel, which there are some, those no good for you. But at least you'll get access to all the iPhone apps.
Yes.
So
Very
we have
good.
to look at the positives. Okay, so we're going to leave that for the day. We're not going to talk about that anymore. Now, I'm going to do my best.
Oh, and Nima, before we go any further, we should also announce to listeners that this week we have got a Samsung event, and I believe that's
Yes.
on Wednesday your time, isn't it? Is that Wednesday?
I think so. I have to look at the exact
I have
time.
to double
But when
check
we,
that.
when we do
Yeah.
that, we'll be
So
going.
what we're going to do again this week, I think, is as we did, so that there's no favoritism and people go, oh, we're Android fanboys and blah, 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 or whatever. We will have that as a YouTube live event. So if anyone's interested in checking that out, check our YouTube stream out. I don't think we'll release it as a pod, considering we didn't do it with the Apple event, so that people don't think that we're being biased or anything.
Yeah.
And look out for that. I suspect we'll probably do it probably Wednesday, US time, so Thursday in Australia.
Yeah, and we'll also have our after party. We have to, or not after party. We have a party, celebrate our achievements, and do a little BTG giveaway. It'll be happening Friday.
Yes.
I'm not so sure necessarily decided what that is yet, but anyway, we will be
We
meeting
will,
at 5 a.m.
Yeah, we will throw out some
And 5
Zoom
PM
links
my
as
time.
well for people that want that. And what we'll do is we'll put those up via email on the Blind Tech Guys email list. So if you're not on there, you better get on there. Blind Tech Guys plus subscribe, googlegroups.com,
Yeah.
or Telegram,
We'll put those
or
in
WhatsApp,
email,
or anything
WhatsApp,
else.
Telegram. We'll put those on there.
You'll know about it.
So anyway, we'll be advertising. We'll be doing that, and we'll just be doing a giveaway and having just a nice old time. There's 2 times to attend: 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. my time, Pacific time, U.S. But it
I
depends.
sadly
of
don't
course.
think I can attend the 5 p.m. one because I will be out then, but I will definitely make at least the first couple of hours of the 5 a.m.
Yep,
first one.
and I think that's one. Is that 1 GMT? I have to look at my own email that I
it
wrote a
would
while
be
back. I think it's
12. No,
it's
it's
either 12, maybe
100 and
12.
1200. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
I'll probably be the other way around, where I'll probably make the later one. But
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. Well, we know
well,
we're going to have
anyone
a
can
party, so
come-
join in
yeah.
whenever you can.
Yeah. Make it whenever you can, or you can come to both if you want
That's
to come
right.
to both. Why not?
All right, so we're going to do a little bit of a demo of Google Calendar. This came from request, and I'll just go read the email real quick here. But this came from request from an individual that wanted us to demo Google Calendar, and this email actually came from David. So David says, "Hey guys, I discovered your podcast about 2 weeks ago, and I love it. I live in a small town in Ontario, Canada. I'm wondering if there's a Google Calendar web app, and if there is, can it be accessed with JAWS? Can you demo of how it works?" I have no JAWS on my machine. I use NVDA and have NVDA. I tend to use JAWS sometimes, but tends to be on a work machine. So I'm going to demonstrate with NVDA, but please know I'm going to tell you exactly what you have to do in JAWS, and most everything I say is going to work exactly the same in JAWS as it does in NVDA. So please listen to what I'm going to do and understand that it's going to work exactly the same in JAWS as it does in NVDA. That's the benefit of web apps. So let's see here. I'm actually interested to see how this is going to work because, by the way, if you guys think I sound different this week, it's because I definitely do. I've got a boom arm that's broken, and I'm sure Kurt had all kinds of laughs about the boom arm.
Yeah, I think you told me that you were doing screws with it, but I suspect there's something else at play here. Were you a little bit, how you'll say, happy when the boom arm broke?
Yeah, screwing the boom arm. Yeah, very good.
Very good.
All right, so I'll go ahead and share my screen, and if this is not working, then you guys just let me know, and we might have to move this to next week, but let's share the screen. Share screen. Share audio. All right, so now we've got... Okay, very good. I'm going to go ahead and slow down the speech rate. There we go. So now I've slowed down NVDA quite a bit. I hope that's understandable. If it's not, I'm going to repeat what it says anyway. So now let's go to, I'm going to open up a new tab. Calendar.google.com, and it's auto-filling it in, so I'll just hit enter.
Calendar.google.com selected. https://calendar.com/calendar/u/0/app. Clickable keyboard short.
Okay, so there's a keyboard shortcuts button, and if I didn't know that, I can easily hit the question mark as is in previous web apps, and it will bring up the list of keyboard shortcuts.
Keyboard shortcuts dialog. Close.
So let's bring up this keyboard shortcuts.
P or K, previous period.
P or K, previous period. So some of these may be familiar as in Gmail and other apps. N or J, next period. And a period depends on what you have your calendar set to. Day view, week view, month view, such that kind of thing.
T, today.
T
I'm glad
is
you
today.
explained that.
Yes.
G, go to date.
G, go to date.
Heading level 2 views. 1 or D, day view.
So these are different views. So you can switch to day view by pressing the number 1 or the letter D.
2 or W, week view.
2's week view.
3 or M.
3 or M is month view.
4 or X.
4 or X
Custom view.
is custom
5 or
view.
A, schedule view.
5 or A is schedule view. So if you don't want to navigate it as a calendar and you just want a straight list of events, then you can use schedule view.
6 or Y, year view.
6 or Y is year view.
Heading level 2 actions.
And here we have the list of actions, and these are all headings.
Not in a table cell. Not in a
These aren't in a table, so it would be nice to get these in a table.
create event.
C to create event.
E, edit event.
E to edit an event.
Backspace or delete. Delete event.
Backspace or delete to delete an event.
Control plus Z or Z.
Control Z, or as NVDA says Z, or some people in other countries, Z. I think they say that in Australia, Z.
Z is for...
Possible.
Z is for zebra. You like?
Control
Ah, very good.
Possible.
Yes. Undo last action is Z.
Escape. Back to calendar
Escape,
view.
back to calendar view.
Control plus S. Save event.
Control S, save event.
Heading level 2 application.
Then
Search.
we can search
Shift plus equals or plus.
with a slash, shift equals or plus.
Focus on search for people to meet text box.
Focus on the search for the people.
Shift plus C or Q.
Shift C.
Open create dialog.
Open the create dialog. It's a different view to create
Control
an
plus
appointment.
D. Print. S.
Control P.
Settings.
S is settings.
Control plus slash or open shortcut help.
And control slash is the keyboard shortcuts or the question.
Alt control plus dot. Jump to side panel.
Alt control period. Jump to the side panel.
Alt plus control plus.
And that's just the same exact thing as in Gmail. So anyway, I've just gone through a whole ton of these keyboard shortcuts. I don't expect you to remember them. Please use that command, control slash, to bring up these keyboard commands. Now let's navigate around the calendar.
Button keyboard.
I have mine set to the day view because I tend to like the day view better. Now, you can go into week view or month view.
Google Calendar April. Google Calendar
But I
Sunday,
like
April
day
20.
view. So now I'm in day view. And now today, let's see if I have any events. So I'm just going to hit the,
Monday. Sun.
let's see here. Oh, I'm going to hit the tab key. So I'm going to hit the tab key.
One event. Personal 1900 to 2100. BTG interview NVAccess. Personal accepted. No location. April 25, 2021 button.
So it's telling me that on my personal calendar, because you can have multiple calendars and you can add as many as you like, on my personal calendar, I have an event called BTG interview, whatever it is, and it gave me the time and it said 1900 to 2100. Now, why did it do that? Because I like 24-hour time. If you don't, you can change that in the settings. If you do, you can change that in the settings. By default, I believe it is actually, it just says 7 o'clock p.m. or whatever you have it set to. So now if I want to go to the tomorrow, let's go to tomorrow. So I'm going to hit the letter J. As in Gmail, it will go to the next item or the next day or whatever view that I have it set to. So the next period.
Monday, April 26, column header. Monday, April 20.
So here's Monday, and I'm going to hit tab.
2 events. Personal 800 to 900. Check work calendar. Personal accepted. No location. April.
Okay, check work calendar, and let's go tab again.
1700 to 1800. Timesheet. Personal accepted. No location.
Okay, so I have to enter my timesheet. So I have that on here as well. If I want more information about any of these events, I can just hit enter.
Check work calendar.
And NVDA at least automatically goes into browser mode. With JAWS, it'll go into forms mode as well.
Button edit event. Button delete. Button close. Button close.
And I can easily edit or delete email guests. If there are any guests, access options.
Calendar Monday, April.
And it tells me all the details for my event. I can easily read these. Now, I should have said from the outset that just as with other web apps, you are going to be using this app primarily with virtual cursor off in JAWS. So insert zebra, turn that virtual cursor off. And NVDA, you're going to be using it in focus mode. So turn that off with insert or NVDA key plus space. Okay. So now let's actually create an appointment. Let's figure out how do you do that. So I'm going to hit the letter C.
Google Calendar event details document. Main landmark event edit page. Title edit blank.
Title. All right. Test appointment.
Save button.
And if I hit tab, I immediately get to the save button. So if all I want to do is just add a very quick appointment, I can easily do that. Just hit save.
Start date edit selected April 26, 2021.
So it gives me the date and April 26, 2021, because that was the date that I had selected in my calendar. I can easily change it.
24.
I'm just hitting up, down arrow at the moment. If I hit up arrow.
April 25, April 26, 2.
Or I can just
simply
type in the date. So I'm just using left and right arrow keys, and I can edit that. So I'm going to hit tab again.
Start time edit selected 2100.
And here's the time. So 2100 is the time. Well, let's change it. That's too early.
2045.
I mean, too late. So let's change it.
1930.
Let's change it to 1930. That's 7:30 p.m. I think I might be awake then. I might be asleep by 9. So let's just do it at that time.
End time edit selected 2030.
End time 2030. That's a long test. So let's just change this to
2000.
2000 hours. So that's 8 o'clock. There we go.
End date edit selected April 26. Time zone button.
Time zone. You can select the time zone that you want. So
all day checkbox not checked.
Here we go. All day. If you want all day event, you can check that box, and in which case those time and date edit boxes will disappear, or at least the time ones will.
Recurrence list collapsed. Does not repeat one of it.
All right. So now we have recurrence. I'm going to hit enter here and see what options we have.
Does not repeat one of it. Daily not selected 2 of it.
You can have daily.
Weekly on Monday not selected.
Weekly.
3 monthly on the 4th Monday not selected 4
monthly.
of it. Monthly on the last Monday not selected 5 of
monthly
it.
on the last Monday.
Annually on April 26 not selected 6 of it.
Annually.
Every weekday Monday to Friday not selected 7 of it.
Every weekday.
Custom not select.
Or you can customize it.
And monthly daily does not repeat.
Since I'm going to be sending this to Marco, I think I'm just going to set it to does not repeat. Otherwise, he might get so annoyed with me that he might kick me off the podcast or something.
Does not repeat.
So
Tab control. Guests tab selected 1 of 1.
here we have 2 tabs. We have guests, and if I hit right arrow,
Google Calendar event details document. Pass next key through. Mid tab control. Guests tab select Google Calendar event. Tab control. Guests blank. Guests combo model tab selected guests.
and it's not going to give me another tab. So sometimes there is another tab. So let's actually add in a guest and see if that
combo
we can
box
get that other
expanded
tab to
as
come up.
autocomplete.
So I'm going to add in Marco.
Google
AR.
Calendar event. Google Calendar event details document. Google Calendar event details document. Main landmark event edit page. List. Marco Corraligo marco.cur@gmail.com 1 of 4.
Okay, so Marco.
Guests combo box
There we
collapsed
go.
as autocomplete.
We'll add him in
editable
here.
blank.
There we go.
Tab control. Guests invited to this event. Preview. Personal. Organizer 1 of 2 level 1. Marco Corraligo 2 of 2 level 1.
And now we know that I've invited Marco because that's
Guests combo box expanded. Tab control. Guests tab selected 1 of 1. Guest Marco
There we
Corraligo
go.
as optional.
So now I can mark Marco as optional or not,
Remove Marco Corraligo.
or I can remove him.
Google Calendar could not resolve the indicated guests for one of the following reasons. The guests may not use Google Calendar. You may not have permission.
Uh-oh.
Guest permission.
So I can't edit his calendar.
Modify the event checkbox not checked.
But let's see here. I can change permissions. I can let him modify the event.
Checked.
Okay, we better let him do that.
Tab control. Google Calendar could not read guest tab control. Event details tab selected.
And then we have event details, and we have another tab.
Find the time tab selected 2.
We have find a time. Let's just make sure this time works for Marco.
Navigation toolbar. Today, Sunday, April 25 button. 1930 to 2000, April 26, 2021. No conflict slider 1930.
So I can easily navigate through the list of times, and it will tell me if there are any conflicts. I can use up and down arrow keys to find the time. If this had a conflict, I would know about it.
Navigate tab control. Find the time tab selected.
So let's go back to the event details. I'm going to hit left arrow.
Event details tab.
There
Join
we
with
go.
Google Meet.google.com/BTG adds keys up to 100 participants. Copy conference info. Remove. Join with Google.
So automatically it adds in a Google Meet link. You can change this in the settings, or I don't know if it does automatically or not. If it does not, you can have it do so. I like this option because a lot of times I do want to meet with people.
Copy conference info button.
So I can copy the conference info.
Remove conference. Location combo box collapse.
Location. Let's go with Hoochville. There we go. Why not?
Preview in maps button. Notifications list. Notification method list collapsed. Pop-up 2 of 2.
So now I can adjust the types of notifications that I get and how often I
Hours
get
in advance for notifications.
those notifications.
Editable selected.
How many hours in advance I get
Unit of time
notifications.
selection list collapse. Remove notification method list. Hours in a unit. Remove.
So you can set multiple
Add
notification
calendar
frequencies.
list collapse. Personal calendar color.
I want it on
Event
my
color
personal. I can change the event
show as
color.
list collapse. Busy 1 of 2.
Show as
Busy
show
1 of 3
as.
not
I either
selected.
want it busy or free. So let's just say busy.
Visit visibility list collapse. Default visibility 1 of 3. Default public not selected 2
I
of
either
3.
want this event public,
Private not select
private,
public. Default.
or default. Default is depending on how you have the calendar settings set.
Learn more about formatting options toolbar. Add attachment button.
I can
Description.
add an attachment if I wanted him to look at a document. And here's a description. So I'm going to just type in, "This is good for you." And let's go ahead and hit Control S to save this appointment. So I just hit Control S.
List. Google. Save as type. Combo Google. Google. Guest permissions. Google Calendar could not resolve.
Let's
Would
see
you
here.
like to send
There we go.
invitation email?
I'm not sure what happened there. It opened up the browser save
Learn
for
more
whatever
link.
reason.
Send button.
So if that happens, just tab away from that field and then try it again for whatever reason. Sometimes that happens. It seems to happen more often with Chrome. But now it's asking me if I want to send Marco an invitation. Yes, I do. I'm going to send him an invitation.
Main landmark event edit page. Main landmark Monday, April 26.
So I've just sent Mr. Marco an invitation.
Side panel 1930 to 20.
And here we go. We have an
Test
appointment.
Personal accepted. Location. Hoochville, April 26, 2021 button.
And it's saying accepted because I created the appointment, so naturally I accept the appointment. If I hadn't accepted it, it was just on my calendar because he had invited me, it would not show up as accepted. Okay, so this has been a demo of Google Calendar. I hope that you've enjoyed this. And again, this works very similar to the way it does in JAWS. The only difference is what cursor that you find yourself in. So let's go ahead and stop the screen share. There we go.
Yeah, got to say, Nim, I use the Google Calendar every day, and it's fantastic because you can, for anyone that doesn't use it, if you've got a Google Mini or any sort of device at home, if you're in the Google Sphere, you can set appointments using that, and it just nicely comes across all your devices, and it is accessible, unlike what some people seem to think. It's very accessible. And it just works. So, very good. Hey, what's this appointment that I got invited to? Pitchville. Oh, very good.
Well, I definitely hope that you enjoy going to Poochville.
Yeah.
All right. So, what's the next setting is in iOS?
Well, the next setting in Android is the connections, where you set up your ringers and your volume and all that sort of stuff. Do we want to cover that this week, or shall we hold that off for an upcoming
maybe we'll
episode?
hold off till next week. Yeah, we're getting a little long, aren't we?
We're already an hour and 40 minutes in, so we might hold this off. And what we might do next week, because of course we probably have a little announcement to make after the emails, Nim. Next Monday or next Sunday, but we'll keep you all in suspense until after the emails.
That's right. All right, so let's go through listener emails.
Oh, did we get some?
Yes.
Do people still love us, or are we a hated species now on the airwaves?
We have one email here from NVDA from a listener, but regarding NVDA, and this actually came in after our interview, so we couldn't ask these questions on the show. But here are some questions, and I'll ask these questions, and then we'll go to a form submission. So we'll go through this email, and we'll see if we can answer them. If we can't, we'll wow, I can't speak. We'll send that along to Mick and Quentin here. Because of Microsoft Narrator's significant improvements, why should one opt for NVDA rather than Narrator? And this is from David. Thank you, David. We have multiple questions, but let's go with that one. The Narrator is not at the same level as NVDA. Now, I think what Mick said, and it's very true, that you should all consider these as tools. So it's not that you shouldn't use a particular product or should use a particular product. It's that you should find the one that meets your needs. And hopefully, maybe it might be multiple products, because these are all tools in a toolbox. I find Narrator still, even though it has come a long way, it still has limitations. It has limitations on the web. It has a lack of settings that NVDA does have. And so I find that Narrator is not quite at the level that NVDA is, and certainly wouldn't be using it as a primary. And the other thing that I find with Narrator is they really need to figure out how to provide better voices, but maybe the purchase of Nuance will help them along, although you can use other SAPI 5 voices. And I'm sure some people will think the same about NVDA and eSpeak. So that's kind of a subjective one, but I'll just put that out there too. But I do like using Narrator. It's really good, snappy on the web, that kind of thing. It's just not what NVDA is for sure.
I completely agree. Like, if you have a computer, you're generally going to have a fair amount of space on your hard drive, I would have thought. Why not just utilize all these screen readers instead of saying, oh, I'm a JAWS user, oh, I'm a, I don't know, Dolphin user, I'm a whatever user. Why not just download them all? I mean, the more that you utilize, I mean, there's been plenty of times where JAWS has locked up on me, and I've turned on Narrator or NVDA to get out of it, or vice versa. These things happen. Why not just have these available to you? And then, you know, as Mick said, it's not about each screen reader fighting it out. Well, it shouldn't be about that sort of stuff. It's about you becoming more familiar with your product or products that you're running on your computer, and therefore enabling you the power to actually get around easier. And if you've got more products to do that with, well, I think that's a great thing. Should be encouraged.
I'm going to read the next two questions, and actually these are the last two questions from this email as one question, and they'll be a little bit long, but I think hopefully we can get through them pretty quickly here. I realize one has to pay for JAWS, but some people claim that JAWS contains more features than NVDA. Why opt for NVDA rather than JAWS? And as a continuation to that, JAWS still has a number of features that NVDA lacks, such as text analyzer or its picture description feature. Do you plan to include or add-ons in NVDA's self instead of offering separate add-ons that one must install? So I'll take a crack at these real quick and just say, again, similar to the narrator thing, if you like JAWS, you're using JAWS. JAWS is working for you. Keep using it. If you want to try something different, if you think that JAWS isn't meeting a particular need, if you are having issues with JAWS in a particular app, that's where you try a different screen reader, and maybe you decide that it works better for you. I don't know. For me, NVDA works with Dvorak, and Dvorak is a keyboard layout. For me personally, that's an important thing, that JAWS, for whatever reason, does not support changing keyboard layouts because it thinks that the keys on the keyboard are still there, the way they were before you changed the layouts. So now this has been reported to Freedom Scientific. They haven't fixed it. For me, I like the beeping progress bar in NVDA. It's a small thing. JAWS does not have a beeping progress bar. I don't like that. I like the NVDA menu a lot better than I like going through the JAWS Settings Center, although the JAWS Settings Center does have a search, so maybe that balances out. I don't know. There's a lot of things that I like personally about NVDA in the way that it works on the web that I'm not a huge fan of, the way that JAWS verbalizes things on the web, although JAWS is quite customizable, can be changed, and JAWS does have sound schemes. So if I'm not making a very clear point, I'm saying to you that I actually like both, but for different reasons. But for my everyday screen reader, I'm definitely an NVDA user, and I find that it meets my needs. So,
and that's interesting that you say that. So I guess I for me use JAWS as an everyday screen reader, and then I find that I get a lot of little bits and pieces out of NVDA that help out. So I guess as you said at the beginning, Nim, it depends on what you want and what you need it for. And if you're happy with one or the other, then there's no reason why we're certainly not turning around and saying you have to do this.
Right.
It's completely up to you. It's whatever you're used to. So.
Yeah.
I use JAWS, but I have found that NVDA on some sites does work better. It's a tool in the toolbox, and like Marco said, most computers today come with a hard drive certainly big enough to run JAWS, NVDA. If you want to run Dolphin, have them all.
Oh God, Dolphin! We're talking about Dolphin now.
Wow. Yeah, I guess if you want to run Dolphin.
Marco did mention.
I know that it works for some users, and we did get a working demo of it. So I'm sure that it works. But let's.
Well, actually, I did see a YouTube link actually pop up on a mailing list today that showed Dolphin at work. So look, we maybe should revisit that at some point, but maybe not today.
Yeah, not today. Yeah, I know. For me, I tend to use NVDA like. At work, JAWS is my primary, and then NVDA kind of fills in the gaps where like JAWS doesn't work with some of the enterprise programs as well, which is really funny because that's what JAWS is supposed to be built for. But then at home, it's kind of the other way around where NVDA is my primary just because it tends to, I feel like it uses less of my system resources, and I multitask a lot at home.
It's definitely more snappier, Kurt. I 100% agree there. No doubt about it.
And then, if NVDA doesn't do something I want, then I'll try and open up JAWS. But
I will say that if I had to pick one JAWS feature that needs to migrate to NVDA, it would be that text analyzer, because it does save a lot of time in formatting documents and things.
Absolutely. That is the one thing that I don't care what anyone says, that is by far the best feature. I've always found that to be the best feature on JAWS. That is excellent. And it does save a huge amount of time.
So,
there you go, Mick. That's something maybe you can work on if you're listening to the show. Text analyzer, bring it on. That would be cool.
Yeah, because otherwise you can do it sort of with NVDA. It just takes a lot more manual work.
Yeah, but it's a lot of mucking around.
And I would argue that it's not really a screen reader feature anyway, because it's not necessarily it just isn't necessarily a screen reader feature as much as it is a big time saver. So maybe good for an add-on. I don't know. It's kind of a debatable thing, but I definitely think the text analyzer is great in JAWS. Anyway, we have a next. Our form submission here comes from Anthony, and this is our last submission before we go on to the news that we have to share at the end. Now hearing it for the first time, I'm going to check when I'm listening now. Okay, let's see here. Wow, I can't read.
I thought we had Gary on there. Very good.
No. Okay, now hearing it for the first time, I'm going to check when I listen now. Checking it out for the first time, I expect exciting content. I know it'll be great. I'm going back here and comment more meaningfully in short order. Excellent. Thank you very much. Definitely thank you for coming on and finding us. And please share it out with your friends and tweet it, Snapchat it, do whatever it is that you want to do. Truly appreciate it, getting the word out there. And I'm very sorry.
So is
my
that the
inability
extent
to
of
read
the
your
comment,
email.
or is
That's
there
it.
more to it? Oh, that's it.
Yep.
Oh,
Hope
very
to hear
good.
more from you later.
Yeah, hopefully you can divulge a bit more on what you think of the podcast and everything else.
All right, so next week we have been invited to be on Live Accessible. So we're going to be living and we're going to be accessible.
Accessibly, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
And we have to have our cameras on, apparently, so I better have a shave and a shower before I get on.
exactly,
And
I might
lighting.
have to put some clothes on. And,
Yeah, put some clothes on and look spiffy.
So we're going to be on Live Accessible. You'll get to watch us on there, and we'll put a link again in our different channels on the mailing list, that kind of thing. But we will be on there, so we're not going to do another live stream here next week. So come back for that on May 9th. And
So I don't think we probably won't. I'm not sure if
we
we're
may
going to
release it
the
as a
Live
podcast.
Accessible.
We're
We'll
not sure,
see.
but we're
We'll
definitely
see.
not going to put it on the YouTube. So.
Yeah. So if you want to, well, obviously you'll
Well, at
find
least
out
it won't
on
be
the
as a
podcast.
live stream anyway. It may come
No.
out as a video later, but it won't be as a live stream. So
So we'll see what
Stay
happens. It
tuned
just
for that.
depends on how things work out. If we do release it, it'll come out on the pod first, and if it doesn't, then I guess we'll be back in a couple of weeks. But of course, check out Live Accessible if you want to hear the show. It's at the pretty much the same time, isn't it, Nim? I think it's an hour early, actually.
it's an hour earlier. Yep, we'll be on
live.
at 6 p.m. Pacific time, so 1 a.m. GMT. And
Correct.
we'll be on the
11
same
a.m.
day,
Aussie
though,
time.
Sunday,
Yeah.
Monday, whatever day it is that right now
Yeah.
today. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining us today. Truly appreciate it. We hope we'll see you at our Zoom party. Join our mailing list,
Yeah.
Blind Tech Guys, plus subscribe at googlegroups.com. You can also send us an email, contact@blindtechguys.com, and all the information for our Facebooks and Twitters and Telegrams and everything else is on our blindtechguys.com website. So check out blindtechguys.com. Thank you very much, Dennis. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Marco.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll see you pooches later. We hope that
All
you've
right.
enjoyed walking with NVDA with us.
And thank you very much, Nimer. I'll catch you during the week, hopefully, with the Samsung event. And thank you, Live Accessible, for the invite for next week. We'll see you then.
Bye, guys.